super excited.
Hi friends, it's Miss Gilbertson. Today is the last day we will be working on rounding for a little while. And the big part of today that we need to pay attention to is what the question is asking us. That is the biggest thing today, because by now you already know how to round, right? Say right. Right. But sometimes we need to make sure that we're paying attention to what we are rounding. So today we have to pay special attention to what the question is asking us. So let's go over our steps to rounding first. We know first we find the place and underline it. We make all zeros just behind it. We look at the digit to the right, and then we know 5 or more, the number takes flight. 4 or less, it sits tight. So let's start right away. It says round these numbers to the nearest 10. To the nearest what? 10. So first things first, I'm going to circle 10 because now I know that I'm rounding to the nearest 10. All right, so now I'm ready to just get started with my normal steps. My first step, I find the place and I underline it. I know ones, tens, so I can underline the tens place. Then step 2, I know that I make all zeros just behind it. So that 6 is going to turn into a 0. But first, I have to look to the right. So when I look just to the right, the number's a 6. 5 or more, the number takes flight. 4 or less, it sits tight. So I see already this is a 6. 6 is bigger than 5, so it is 5 or more. This number is going to go up by 1. So what's 1 more than 4? 5. My answer is 50. Good. Now this time I have a number that's going into the hundreds. Say that's okay. We're still rounding to the nearest 10 because I'm reading my question every single time just to make sure. It says round these numbers to the nearest 10. I check that question. It says 10. I pay super close attention. All right, step 1, what am I going to do? I find my place and underline it. So I start from here, ones, tens. All right, I can underline my tens. Step 2, make all zeros just behind it. So I'm still just changing this last number to a 0. Good. Step 3, I look at the digit to the right. So I'm looking right next door at the number 9. 9. Is 9 5 or more or 4 or less? It's 5 or more. Good. So that means my 5 is taking flight. What's 1 more than 5? 6. Good. So now I can just write 3 the way it was. My 5 turns into a 6, and I bring that 0 down. 359 rounded to the nearest 10 is 360. Good. Let's look at our next one. Oh, goodness. Say, oh, goodness. We're moving into the thousands. Say, but that's okay. We're so smart. I'm still just counting to my tens place because remember, I'm reading my question every time. Round these numbers to the nearest 10. All right, I know I'm rounding to the 10. So I'm going to find my tens place. Ones, tens, boom. That's it. Say that's it. All right, now I go to my step 2. Step 2, I change it to zeros just behind it. So does that mean that I'm going to make this 6 a 0? No, because it's not behind my 2. Good. Step 3, I'm looking to the digit to the right. So I'm looking right next door. Next door to that 2 is a 1. You know 5 or more, the number takes flight. 4 or less, it sits tight. So tell me, is that 2 going to sit tight or take flight? Tell me. Yeah, it's going to sit tight because the number 1 is less than 4. So I write all of my numbers the same way. 1, 6, and my 2 is staying the same. and I bring down my 0. 1,621 rounded to the nearest 10 is just 1,620. All right, so friends, now I have to read my new set of instructions. I'm reading it every single time so I know what I am rounding to. But now I have to read again because there's a new direction. So it says round these numbers to the nearest 100, to the nearest 100. So I'm going to circle 100. Good. Now when I'm finding my place value, I don't stop at 10, I stop at 100. So first step, find the place value and underline it. Ones, tens, hundreds. I underline the hundreds. All right. My next step is to make all zeros just behind it. So now both of these numbers are turning into zeros because there's two numbers behind the place we're working with. But I'm still looking just right next door. All right, so that 6 is looking at the 2. We know 5 or more, the number takes flight. 4 or less, it sits tight. Where does 2 stand? Is it 4 or less or 5 or more? It's 4 or less, so my 6 is going to stay the same, and everything behind it is just going to become that 0. So I write my 6 and bring my zeros down. 629 rounded to the nearest 100 is 600. You probably saw me pause for a second because I got really nervous. I forgot for a second that we were rounding to the hundreds, and when I looked at this 2 and I saw this 9, I thought I messed up because I saw a 9 at the end. But remember, that's not what we're doing. It's the number right next door, not the last number. Whew, that almost tricked me. All right, we have 2 more, and I'm going to go fast because now I think you can handle it. So I'm going to read my question again. Round these numbers to the nearest 100. I round it to the nearest 100. I read my question. I understand where I'm going. So I find my place value and I mark it. What number should I be underlining? 7, correct. 7 is in the hundreds place. Ones, tens, hundreds. All right, what do I do next? I make all the numbers behind it a 0. Good. What's next? I look at the digit to the right. Now we're ready to round. This number 4 or less, or 5 or more. This number 8. It's 5 or more. So I know the 7's going to go up by 1. What's 7 plus 1? 8. So I make my 8, bring my zeros down. 781 rounded to the nearest 100 is 800. All right, and last one, say, oh goodness.
My medal. What?
Oh goodness. This one has another number in the thousands place. But that's okay because we're still just counting to the hundreds when I read my question. So, round these numbers to the nearest 100. I'm going to find my place and mark it. What number should I mark? I should be marking the 2 because ones, tens, hundreds. I'm marking that 2. Now what's my next step? I make all zeros just behind it. Then where am I looking? Where am I looking? I'm looking right next door to the number 5. 5 or more, the number takes flight. 4 or less, it sits tight. My number is 5. So what happens to the 2? We add one more because 5 will make my number go up. So my 1,000, I just bring it down because it's in front of that 2. It doesn't change into a 0. I bring down my Next number, which is a 3, because I add one more, and then I add my 2 zeros. 1,253 rounded to the nearest hundred is 1,300. All right, friends, you are like rounding superstars at this point. You know exactly what you need to do to get going on your exit ticket. Again, the biggest thing you need to remember from today is to read what place value you are rounding to so that you always know what number you need to underline. All right, good job, friends. I'll see you tomorrow.